So I'm doing things a little different today. As you could probably tell from the title, this is part one of this video related to Arthur's Nose by Mark Brown. I thought it'd be a little simpler and a little less confusing if I did part one as sort of a retrospective background on the book and the author, and the second part would just be reading the book to you. So, to start with, Mark Brown, who not only wrote the Arthur books, but has also illustrated them, which actually came as a surprise to me. Because if you can tell, this style, his character designs, they weren't what you all think they were. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, that look was Arthur, his original design. He looked like an actual aardvark instead of what he did in the show. I call this realistic surrealism, which is to say that they look kind of uncanny, but they're also anatomically correct, I guess you'd say. Well, I mean, anthropomorphized, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, so a little history on Mark Brown. He was born in Erie, Pennsylvania, where he lived. And he was actually inspired to continue drawing stuff like this from his grandma Thora, which is why Arthur himself has a grandma Thora. I don't know if the personality traits carried over from real-life grandma Thora to the show, but I have to say it is a loving tribute. I'm going to say that much, and I haven't seen the show in forever. So take it with a grain of salt, but I like to think Mark Brown kept her good influence on the show. So, let's see. What else? Oh, yeah. He used a lot of watercolors for his illustrations, where you can actually kind of tell. It doesn't come across that way. It looks, sometimes it's a little flat, but who knows? Maybe back then they had a different process. He probably painted all these in watercolors at one point, and somehow they got transposed or put over on paper so that they have this kind of look. I'm not up to date on all my processes for making books and illustrations like that. But it is a unique style, like I said, even without the character design thing. Now, if you're wondering, yes, this is the first book of the series, the first Arthur book ever written. I have checked and double-checked. And you may realize there's something else about Arthur that is different from the version you all know. And it's not his nose. Because if you can get past that, you look, he has no glasses. That's because he didn't get his glasses until book 2, titled Arthur's Eyes, which unfortunately I do not have. I can only assume, though, that he mirrors my experience pretty well. I didn't like getting these things at first, but, I've been with them 15 years. Now it's kind of hard to part with them. Okay. So, Mark Brown had a lot of jobs before he settled as a, professional writer and illustrator. One of them, which actually feeds into the future, kind of, he was a TV art director. Now, I couldn't find information on what he did, but I do know that his experience with that probably led him to being an executive producer for the Arthur show, through seasons 10 through 25. Where was he the first 9 seasons? Somewhere in the background, I'm sure. He had his own production company that handled most of those seasons, but he himself was not on it, I don't believe. Now, there are quite a few differences. Not just character designs, because they look more like realistic animals here in the book, but even the later books, they look more like the show. For example, I've also got Arthur's teacher trouble, which came out 10 years after this, and they all look like the show in that book. So the progress of the characters was very, very fast. Okay. And, oh yeah, one more little tidbit, in case you couldn't tell. Now, it was like, first, okay, that's kind of a weird name, but don't be hard on it, because that is his first son. And apparently he has a habit of sneaking his name into every single Arthur book, which I actually looked at all the pages in this trying to find it. I'm like, no, it is very well hidden if it's in this book at all. Well, except for right there, because it's, you know, the dedication. And, yeah. Tolan isn't quite unusual. It is Mark's middle name, so you can see where that kind of comes from. And it does sound kind of cool. It is one letter off from Talon, which is pretty much the coolest word in existence. Let's see. Okay, the one big difference about this is, well, the show is all about Arthur and his friends. So not just his family, but everyone remembers his friends. You got Buster, Binky, the Brain, Sue Ellen, Fern, and especially Francine and Muffy. But here's the thing. Most of those friends I just mentioned aren't in this book at all. The only one of his friends that kept on chugging right through the Arthur franchise into the century, the one who's been there since day one, is Francine. Yes, that's Francine. That's how she looks in this book. Which I guess isn't too far out of the norm, since she is a monkey, always has been. And her features don't look too different or out there from the show. Maybe her hair is a little more wild, but that's about it. And also, if you realize that, that's a picture of Arthur's classroom in school. You realize that's Francine, that's Arthur. Who are all these other kids? There's no giraffe, pelican, or owl on the show. Yeah, these characters don't have names, which I've tried to find the origin points of, but unfortunately I could not. It's just too old to have information about secondary, even obscure characters from this kind of series. But you may be wondering, well, where are his friends? When do they come into the series? Well, I haven't read all the books, but I do have a theory. And it actually comes from one of the last pages. Well, actually, the last page. Now, in the show, Arthur has a teacher named Mr. Rapper. He's one of the most popular adults on the show. And it's very well stated over and over again that Arthur is in the 3rd grade. He gets Mr. Rapper for 3rd grade, as evidenced in the book Arthur's Teacher Trouble, which I just mentioned earlier. But in this book, yeah, that's why his friends aren't in there. He hasn't met them yet, because he's younger in this book than he is in the series. That's my theory. So the books make it more chronological in a sort of way. Like, maybe Mark Brown started with 1st grade and worked his way up to 3rd grade through the rest of the books. And then maybe he slowly introduced the other characters that we all know and love today, like Buster and Binky and all of them. Although I am pretty sure that Sue Ellen was invented just for the show. I'm pretty sure. But don't quote me on that. Okay. one last thing. The whole point of the book is about Arthur trying to change his nose because people make fun of it. And the book says he goes to a rhinologist for a new nose. Now here's the thing. Rhinology is a real thing. However, the internet was totally unhelpful because I can't find a specific use of rhinologist as a real term for that kind of a doctor. But yeah, what they're referring to is otorhinolaryngology. You know, nose reshaping or nose surgery, that kind of thing. But here's the thing that really drives it home. Apparently Mark Brown has a really funny sense of humor because the rhinologist is a rhino. Yes, it's on the nose. Yes, I think that's the point. It is just perfect. Oh, and also in this scene, like I said about realistic surrealism, there's realistic paintings in the background of the scene, if you can see, with realistic people. The only one I've been able to make out is Lassie in this corner. As for this guy, I am pretty sure he's a former president. I want to say Warren Harding. If that's wrong, correct me, because I literally don't know. I don't know how to find out. This guy is a complete mystery. And the guy half obscured by her horn over here, that's either Inspector Clouseau or Walt Disney. Those are my two best guesses. With a book this old, you never know where the references are drawn upon from. As for this one, I couldn't even begin to guess. I really couldn't. Oh, and for people who are confused about the whole aardvark and anteater debate, Arthur is clearly stated to be an aardvark. Maybe not in this book, I don't think. But in general, the public knows that he's an aardvark. What's the difference? Well, I looked up pictures, and apparently anteaters have more fur and more of a distinct pattern in their fur. Aardvarks almost look bald, kind of. But they do have the same kind of nose, so that's one of the reasons people are confused. Another reason is aardvarks are sometimes colloquially referred to as anteaters because they do eat ants. But when people say anteater, they generally refer to the furred variety that you found in South America. But yeah, this is an aardvark. Now that that's cleared up, yeah, I'm all done. That's all the info. That's most of the backstory. And one last thing. This book, the first one, was written in 1976, which means that the Arthur show premiered exactly 20 years after this first book was written, which I always think is pretty cool when the stars align like that. Okay, now that that's over, let us read the book. Join us in part 2.